Hello, everybody. It's Michael Jaco with Unleashing Intuition Secrets. We have a couple guests today. One just fell out again. Have a little bit internet connection issues that are going on. But Kimberly Overton, BSN, RN, BC, FMP. We'll see if we can get her back in real quick here. So I'm just going to continue. And she's entrepreneur and founder of Nurse Freedom Network and Remnant Healthcare. With a background in critical care and hospice nursing, she is the passionate advocate for medical freedom, informed consent, and patient autonomy. After leaving traditional bedside nursing during the COVID-19 pandemic, and we've had her on our show, and I've done a show with her about this, Kimberly dedicated her work to exposing corruption in healthcare, empowering nurses, and helping patients navigate their healthcare choices with truth and compassion. She is the host of the Nurses Report on America Out Loud, where she champions ethical patient-centered healthcare. That's right. And Dr. Tracy Scott, first time with us, so we're looking forward to her insight on this incredible IBOGA. So so very, very incredible, health stuff that we're going to be talking about. So Dr. Tracy Scott is a clinician, researcher, and healer whose work stands at the crossroads of cutting-edge functional medicine and the world's most ancient healing traditions. With a PhD in nutrigenomics, how do you pronounce that?
Nutrigenomics, yes.
Nutrigenomics. Wow, that's I love that. That's amazing. And more than 2 decades of clinical and field experience spanning 120 plus countries. She has dedicated her career to guiding individuals toward deep, lasting transformation, honoring the mind, body, and spirit as one integrated whole. And so she's also, we're going to be talking about her retreats. That sounds fantastic. So ladies, thanks so much for joining us. And we'll start with you, Dr. Tracy Scott, and giving us an overview of IBOGA.
Yes, okay. Thanks for having me, first and foremost. And wow, so IBOGA is really dubbed the master or the Mount Everest of all psychedelics. And the reason for that, it is originally from equatorial Africa. It's known as the Tabernathe iboga. It's a perennial shrub from Cameroon, Gabon, the Congo Basin. And it is known also as a neurogenic. And so that really is, a lot of people think of psychedelics as like, oh, I'm going to hallucinate. It really is more a dream state. People describe it as like, they're having a dream, a lucid dream. And so that's really what makes it quite different sometimes than the others. Very, very powerful plant experience. And we can get more into the difference because most people or your viewers may have heard about ibogaine. Iboga is comprised, it's the whole root plant, and it's comprised of like over 20 plus alkaloids, indole alkaloids. Ibogaine is one of those alkaloids, and it's most notably used for like the medical detox piece because it is so powerful in addiction interruption. And so, yes, that ibogaine and that actually metabolizes to noribogaine is one of the isolates, one of the extracts of the whole root. And we can talk about that difference in a little while if you'd like.
Yeah, that's incredible because I've seen a lot of information on ibogaine. A lot of Navy SEALs and other people that have PTSD and addictions to drugs. They have been taking, for PTSD. They go down and get treatments in Mexico because this is not available in the United States.
Not quite yet. It is starting to, you've probably seen Trump and Joe Rogan getting out there because it's necessary, right? Mental illness is a big thing in the Western world, especially. And obviously veterans, it's very important because, as you mentioned, the suicide rate, and it's like 2 times what non-veterans have. So it's an important initiative, but it's almost like right to access right now. So they have to qualify. It's still Scheduled 1. There's certain places in the country like Texas with the Texas IBOGA initiative that are now, slowly starting to, come around to how they adopt that, but it's still very early in research phases.
Yeah, so it sounds to me that IBOGA would be the one to really go to, because it's so much more, it sounds far more effective, like you talked about. Yeah, and sadly, this is not just for veterans, of course. This is for lots of people, and it's not just for, as Kimberly's going to talk about, it's not just for people that are suffering from PTSD or addictions and so forth. If you have a spiritual quest, you want to go for your spiritual, spirituality. This is also a very, very evolutionary type medicine, that, if you will, that can get you there. So it's obviously been used a long time in Africa. How long has it been used in Africa? Do you have any?
Oh my goodness. Very first journey with it myself personally. And I did a little research and I was correct. I mean, it's just been, since the time of, my goodness, like Queen of Sheba. And that's what really came through in my own journey, not to sound strange, but it's been, it's been used for a very, very long time, hundreds of centuries now, with the Bwiti, which is the group that actually holds it in Africa.
Wow, that's incredible. So all the way back to King Solomon times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's incredible.
Exactly. Yeah, you know the story. Yeah. A long time.
Yeah, very, very.
And that's like, if I'll just kind of interject for a second. I think that's the big piece with ibogaine versus iboga. With ibogaine, people aren't getting that spiritual piece to it. They're not getting the ceremonial container, I would say. So it's mostly medicalized in a certain way, where you're hooked up to monitors, you're hooked up to an IV pole. And that tends to be a little challenging when we're trying to work on ancestral wounds. A lot of people have ancestral trauma that we need to get to the root of. We need people to understand like where spiritually the trauma maybe has originated from. So it's a lineage piece. And that's really what the spiritual component holds so deeply, and why it's so important to use on my, in my belief, maybe I am biased, but in my belief, that's what the whole root holds for people, is that spiritual container.
Wow. So a much bigger picture, and, far more healing, I would think. So this is going to be fantastic. So what drew you to iboga specifically, rather than other plant medicines? Because there's ayahuasca out there. There's, there's lots of study that's going on with mushrooms and so forth. Why iboga?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, I wasn't necessarily a psychonaut, which means I tried them all, but I definitely had tried some, I definitely have worked with psilocybin and ayahuasca and San Pedro. And for me, I had done ayahuasca, I'd sat with ayahuasca, which is more of a feminine plant, it has more of a feminine energy. And it was probably after like the 5th time of sitting with Mother Aya, she was very stern with me, and she's like, enough is enough. You're done here. It's time for you to go home to Africa and work with the master of all plants, iboga. And I thought, oh my goodness, I had to go home and research that myself to think like, what is this plant? What is this? What should I be embarking on next? And so, within less than a year, I was off to Africa and became initiated in all of the things. And add into kind of layman's terms is that, psilocybin will show you the door. Ayahuasca helps you walk through the door, but iboga helps you understand why the door is there in the first place. And that's, I think, where people really get stuck. We get stuck in our own minds. We are almost like prisoners of our own mental framework, right? I'll give you an example. The first time I used iboga, it was, I won't say unpleasant, but it was a little uncomfortable from the standpoint of I saw the same vision over and over for like 11 hours. And it was a merry-go-round ride. And I could see the same scene around and around and around. And then I audibly heard IBOGA speak to me and say, "Are you tired of being on this ride?" And I said, "Yes. Like, how do I get off of this ride?" And IBOGA said, "Step back, surrender, and let us take control, because we're showing you the perseveration, the like fixation of what you do with your mind. And it's time to now change that." And it was one of the most powerful experience I've ever had.
Wow, that's incredible. So, being a spiritual guy, remote viewer, and looking into the future and pulling out information, this sounds like, something I would be really interested in doing. Now, why would you use this over other things? Like you're talking about, it sounds like it's the mother of all of them. And I'm sure Kimberly has some more insights from her experience as well. But why would you use this over everything else? And why would, we would want, instead of going with ibogaine, why would we want to go with IBOGA?
Well, I'll answer your first question first, which is why IBOGA over other plants, why it is dubbed the master or the Mount Everest. And it's really because those alkaloids that I talked about in the beginning, the 20 plus alkaloids, they work synergistically together. So it's not just the one, it's the synergistic piece of the whole root. And they work on a lot of different multiple systems at the same time. So they work on NMDA, which is a system in our brain to help edit those pathways out. That's what I just talked about with my own perseveration. They work on the opioid system of your brain, serotonergic, dopaminergic, which is why it's powerful for addicts, because that's the place. And so all of those things come together in that master plant experience to really help kind of reset everything. And that's why it's so powerful. We hear neuroplasticity, which is creating new neuronal pathways in the brain. Yes, the others do that. Psilocybin's there's some data with psilocybin, ayahuasca, but nothing is as profound at this as IBOGA. So it's because of that life review that it gives us,
Very interesting. So,
Kimberly, where we are
let's
now to help.
Sorry, it's kind of like hopping in and out. I think you're trying to,
Sure, no problem.
So, that seems to be the thing. I should have just not even advertised this. So, Kimberly, let's jump to you for a little bit, and we'll go back and forth. Why did you choose IBOGA?
I had a friend that told me about it. It was a very good friend of mine that was telling me about IBOGA, and he had known that I've had a very stressful few years with COVID and everything that had happened. And my nervous system, I was in complete fight or flight all the time. I could not downshift and deregulate my nervous system. And he thought that this would be a good option for me. So I did a little research on it, and he connected me with Tracy, and we talked. And the more I researched it, the more I thought that this was going to be a good option for me. It wasn't something that I jumped right into and just said, "Oh, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. Let me go ahead and do it." And I did my due diligence. I did the research, and I spoke to Tracy. And the most important thing to me was that I prayed over it. I prayed and I asked for discernment, which I do with everything, every decision that I make. But I had experienced pretty significant trauma back in 2022 that I was having some difficulty processing. I'm one of those people that kind of pushes stuff down and just keeps going. And I know a lot of people are the same. So the more you push it down, obviously the worse that it gets, right? So it's obviously something that has to be dealt with. After I spoke to Tracy, and I felt just such a wonderful connection with him from the very first time that we spoke. I felt like she could help me, and from there it was an easy decision, and we made the plans to go down. And
yeah, that's fantastic. So now there was I think a place in the Bible that you talk about, kind of inspiration for you. Can you share that with us?
Were you talking to me? I'm sorry, the internet was cutting in and out, and I didn't get any of that. Sorry.
there's a quote in the Bible that you shared, and I actually put it in the description box. It's really good. Share that with us, and what I think that's very inspirational for a lot of people.
Oh, okay. All right, hold on. I think you're kind of cutting in and out. I think you said something about scripture.
Yeah, scripture.
Okay. Yeah. So there are a lot of Christians who will feel like, or they're under the impression that that plant-based medicines are not of God, and I don't share that. I don't share that viewpoint. I believe that I don't even. Oh my gosh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Because I don't know what's happening here, but everything is frozen. Okay. But I do believe, that God gave us everything that we need, right? Genesis 1:29 speaks of God giving every seed-bearing plant for our use. Ezekiel 47:12 says that the fruit will serve for food and the leaves for healing. And I just believe with all my heart that God gave us everything on this earth to not only survive, but to thrive.
Yeah, very good. And I'm gonna try and switch our internet one more time. So we'll see if that makes a difference.
It's choppy. I've been in and out, I think 10 times. I don't know if it's me because I'm traveling. It could be mine. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got a couple different
did we lose
options.
Tracy?
So I've been switching. I'll switch back to the other one. And we'll see if that works any better for us. So it'll take just a second to make the switch, and then we'll be back.
Okay.
All right. So how is it now?
I think it's okay.
Yeah, sounds better. Good. Now you're clear, and we'll see if we can get Dr. Tracy back in here. She's in and out. So like you were. Now, since we have you, let's kind of focus on your experience. So you decided to do it, and you work with Dr. Tracy, and tell us how that worked out. What was the experience like?
Yeah, it was an absolutely profound and incredible experience. But just to kind of explain a little bit, and I'll share I think I've shared my Substack with you because I talk about this, that I've actually made 2 trips out to Costa Rica to do the IBOGA. So I had gone with a friend of mine with the intention of doing the IBOGA. We do a lot of work together, and prior to they do a lot into preparing you to come down. They really want you to clean up your diet and do some things before you go down there so that you can kind of be ready for the experience. Well, the first time, because I'm me and I don't listen real well, I unfortunately I was trying to do a fast. I started with a 72-hour fast, and I took a phentermine, which is an appetite suppressant. And I was doing that to help me to fast to get ready for the IBOGA. Well, Tracy is, they do a drug screening before you do the IBOGA. And of course, I popped positive for methamphetamine. So I'm not doing meth, everybody. No, I'm not doing meth. I was just doing phentermine for an appetite suppressant. But it's just to say that Tracy really put safety at the forefront. So I was not able to do the IBOGA because it was deemed it would not have been safe for me to do that. So I ended up making a second trip out there to do it. But I say all that just to speak to the level of safety and concern that Tracy has for people. She could have very easily in fact, I told her, I said, I'll just sign a paper. If I die, I die. It's cool. And I felt so bad the next day. I was like, Tracy, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I even would have put that on. But I was like, if I die, it's fine. I'll sign the paper. I really wanted to do it, but God's timing, right? So it's a little bit of a detour, but it's all in God's timing. And maybe I needed a little bit more time to get ready for the medicine. So I went back several months later with actually another friend of mine I went down with, and the experience was absolutely beautiful and profound. I prayed over it before the ceremony. It was nothing like I'd ever experienced. I think Tracy may have touched on it a little bit earlier, that it's not like you think about. You don't feel like you're high or anything. It's not quite like that. It's a very profound journey where it's almost like a life review. It was pretty amazing. I started seeing, I had visuals. I know not everybody has visuals, or some people have more than others. I had quite a bit, where it was like seeing my life in a movie. And it was just absolutely incredible. I saw myself as a young child. I saw family members. I saw my child. I saw friends. It was just absolutely amazing. I saw other things that didn't make so much sense, but yeah.
Wow, it sounds amazing. So you've done it twice now?
Well, I've only done it the one time, but I plan to go back. Okay,
I got you.
What I love about it is, you have to set intentions when you're going in. You set the intentions, you review those with Tracy, and then she asks IBOGA, or you ask IBOGA questions, and it answers you, or it doesn't answer you, which it did both in my case. There were questions that I had that I wanted an answer to, and it went fade to black. So there's that. But when I asked, one of the questions was, one of the reasons I really wanted to do the IBOGA was because I have felt very called to this path that I'm on. But I'm always sitting here saying, but why? But why me? I couldn't understand why God had chosen me. And I wanted to know why. Is this my true calling? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? If it's not what I'm supposed to be doing, please help me to realize what that is. And I asked God, or IBOGA, I asked IBOGA what my true calling was, and I got a very clear visual illuminated, and it just said love.
Oh,
just said love.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, I definitely see that in you, and you brought that back, and that's where you started all your different programs and so forth.
Well, I had already started everything, but I will tell you, because of the trauma that I had in 2022, I was really suffering from my executive functioning. It really rewires your brain when you experience trauma. And I was not able to be as focused. I was not able to be as productive as I had been in years previous. So I was really kind of stagnant and at a standstill with growing my business. And once I was able to do the IBOGA, I came back. I felt more grounded. I've been able to get so much more accomplished. And I feel like this medicine continues to work. It's not just the journey when you're having, which is profound in and of itself, but the way that it continues to work in your system as you kind of go. I think months down the road, I was still feeling the effects of the medication, and that I was more productive and just more focused.
Excellent. So it looks like we got Dr. Tracy back. Not a visual, but she's hearing us, and I think she can talk. So Dr. Tracy, tell us, when you have somebody come in, they qualify and everything, and you start the process. Take us through the process. How long does it take to go through the IBOGA ceremony?
Right. So we do a very proper screening. I think Kimberly alluded to that. So not everybody qualifies, and that's the safety piece. So we have to keep people safe. And so that's first and foremost. And then once they qualify, we get them scheduled, and we do some pre-integration. I mean, this whole thing is about integration. The journey is just one small part of it, but really it's what happens before and after the journey that's makes it stick. So it makes it adhere much better. So we do some counseling ahead of time. We understand oftentimes what I do with people that I think is unique and different because of my background in science is that I want to look at people's brain and their gut. So I want to look at people's gut biome. I want to see what they have going on in their gut. Why? Because that's your second brain. And so more importantly, I'm looking at, yes, what's happening in your brain as well, like your neurotransmitters, which are serotonin and dopamine and GABA and all of the things that IBOGA will help to reset. But I want to see what the baseline is. The reason I check people's gut alongside of that is that those are all made in the gut. So if somebody has an imbalance in the gut, they're not going to be making their neurotransmitters. And it helps to optimize those things. IBOGA, any of these psychedelics or plant medicines, for example, will give people a feeling of more serotonin, more feel good neurochemicals, but it doesn't last forever. And so my theory is like, look, if we can help to continue along the feel good line or that trajectory, why not? And most people that come to me nobody has a perfect microbiome and nobody has perfect neurochemistry. So once we do that, they come in, and the retreat itself is they leave on the 6th day. It's 5 nights, 6 days. The first day, people arrive and they have dinner. We have dinner as a team, and I have other people that work with me who are fabulous. And the next day we prepare ritualistically, I would say, physically. People are resting before ceremony, and we start at dusk. And so iboga tends to be a shadow plant. It's definitely getting to some of the deeper truths within that we don't often see, that are sometimes buried in our subconscious. And so it works better at night, to be honest with you. And so I am definitely a proponent of setting intentions. Kimberly mentioned that as well. When you come in and you're clear about what you want to get out of the experience, it goes a lot better. And we start about 7 o'clock, and I'm awake all night with people. And we do it very slowly and gradually. And so I give people a small dose kind of every hour until they reach kind of their maximum tolerator, or I see that they're really they're in the experience. And we journey until the sun comes up, and then people go back to their sort of designated rooms, their bedrooms. And that day is what we call the day of magic. And that's really the day that all of those good neuronal pathways are being recircuited. They're being replenished or repatterned, if you will, edited, all of the things that is necessary for this to really take shape. And it's a day of like, they're feeling tired physically, but mentally they're still almost in the journey. They still get some insights. They're getting reflections. Oftentimes people will say, oh my gosh, I still feel like I'm in the medicine. Well, they are to a lesser degree. So we give them a journal, no phone, no electronics, nothing that's going to affect the newness, right? The like brand new virgin pathways in your brain. We don't want any like outside inputs. And so then after that, the day of magic, people kind of their physical bodies come back online around dinner time. They'll feel like eating again. And the next days to follow is really where we do deep integration work. And so I work with a clinical psychologist who I've been working with for quite some time. And she's very familiar with how iboga works. Wow. And so she comes in and curates, she really devises a specific plan for each person. And so she has a lot of tools in her tool belt. She does EMDR, she does cognitive behavior therapy, internal family systems, family constellations. She does somatic work, which I don't want to be rambling, but one of the big pieces with this plant, or any plant in particular, or trauma, is that issues are in the tissues. And if we're not moving the body somatically, which means movement with purpose, then the trauma is still stuck within the body. And that's one of the things that she does brilliantly. And then we give people a plan to integrate, and we continue with them afterwards. And that's important to keep up with people as they progress and they go back home into the matrix.
Wow, it's incredible. So obviously, good medical screening takes place. It's not casual. It's not recreational by any stretch of imagination. This is very serious, work that you guys are doing. Kimberly, tell us about, your experience with the plant, and then afterwards, like Dr. Tracy was talking about.
Yeah. And so like I said, when I first took it, I think I got a pretty good dose at first, and it did not take me long at all to get in. I think, at first I wasn't really sure what to expect. I think there was a lot of anticipation building up to it, but it did not take me long. I think I was having visuals, and they set the expectation, and they, go in expecting nothing, because, you may not have visuals. So I was trying to go in and not expect very much, kind of hope for the best, expect for the worst, which is my life motto anyway. But I went in, and I swear to you, I had visuals probably within 10 minutes of my experience. What I really love about, and what I think sets Ravella Retreat and Tracy apart in general, is that the kind of level of personalized guidance you get. I know that some of these, you go in with a larger group. This is, maybe one or two people. And I mean, I had Tracy by my side the entire time, and I can't tell you what a comfort that was to me. Number one, because I'm going into this not really knowing what to expect, and Tracy could tell you that I was a little like, what is this going to be like? What's going to happen? And but just kind of knowing that she was there the entire time was such a comfort, and I feel like that made me relax more and made me really appreciate the medicine more. I feel like it worked better just having that level of comfort. I will say that not all of it is fun. You see things sometimes that you may not want to face, but I think there are things that you need to face. I think, and Tracy can say it better, but it gives you what you need, not necessarily what you want. I went in wanting certain answers, but it gave me what I needed.
Well, that's great. And I can say meditations and stuff, so forth in the group that, you're going to have challenges. Challenges are the ones that really inform you the most. And afterwards, Tracy's working here with yourself in your room. What was that experience like?
Oh, that was the best nap I've ever had. I swear. I think I was flat on my back for 24 hours after. But you, as Tracy mentioned, you're still, things are still happening. You're still.
Processing.
I haven't had a nap like that in years. And it was pretty amazing. As I mentioned earlier, like I've been in fight, I cannot downshift and deregulate my nervous system. But let me tell you, I want to go back just for the nap. It was amazing.
I could see that.
It does still work. Like I had visuals, very, very few, but you could still kind of see things. And it was one of those things where I was like, I want to see more. So I would keep like closing my eyes and like putting the pillow over my head so I could maybe make it darker so I could see more.
Wow, incredible. So, Dr. Tracy, back to you. In the days and the weeks after that window, you talk about how that's very critical. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's that period of integration, and it is quite crucial. So we've got about 3 weeks when the active metabolite of nor-ibogaine is still in people. It's still in their system, and that's where the work really begins. If you want my honest answer, oftentimes people will go home from these journeys and they kind of flip right back into their old life. I see people fall down so often here, not just with IBOGA or ibogaine, but a lot of other experiences that they pay for. Hence why I am so particular about the integrative window, which is that period afterwards. And so those are anchoring people in, because often what IBOGA gives us is almost like a heightened emotional intelligence piece. It's like that internal awareness. It's when a pattern or a trigger comes up, it's easily more identified of like, oh, shoot, I'm doing that. I'm going back over that and perseverating, or, oh, I'm triggered by this. Why? It's kind of like it presents it to us in a sort of gentle nudge. And when we're able to work with somebody like, my clinical psychologist or someone like a guide afterwards, an integrative coach, it becomes very helpful because that person can then start to embody it. Embodiment means like they're practicing it, right? They're practicing it in their daily life. And that is really what makes these experiences, stick more, that they last a lot longer. They're able to stay with people.
Yeah, that's incredible. You're having people with, and what was that like for you, Kimberly, in the weeks and months or so afterwards?
Yeah, it was incredible. Like Tracy said, it continues to work. I continue to see, progress in what I was doing, and just my understanding. I saw a lot more. There was a lot more clarity to things that I had a lot of questions about. I started it didn't happen all at once or all overnight, but gradually, little by little, I started to understand things and was able to process them so much easier, and to the point. And then when I was finally able to, I think it was several months later, but I was finally able to kind of release something that I had been holding on to for a really long time. And when I was able to release that, when I tell you, it just felt like my entire nervous system just came back online. It was absolutely amazing.
Mm.
And I credit that to the IBOGA. I truly do. But the working with the psychologist, Deborah, was absolutely incredible. And when you're digging in and you're getting, and IBOGA is showing you all of these things that, may not be so pleasant. It is so important to have that aftercare and that reintegration. And somebody to talk to deal with that and give you different modalities and different techniques that you can use to try to process that information, because it's a lot. So it's not something that you should just do and then go back to your regular life. That's not advised. You really need to have that integration approach that Tracy used. I think she does it incredibly well.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Very good. Very good. Did you want to add anything, Dr. Tracy?
Well, I was just going to add a couple of funny examples. One funny, one more serious. I had a client call me right after he got back on the plane, and he was traveling back home to far away. I'll just say that. It was a very long flight. And in his IBOGA session, what surfaced was this sort of childhood block for him. I mean, it was like when he was a child in grade school and he was being bullied by girls, not boys, but they all the boys chimed in, and he had a lot of hesitancy around relationships to this day because he was always shy about approaching women, even well into his 50s. Right. So he had called me when he got back home. He goes, "You'll never believe what happened." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Well, I got on this plane," and he goes, "No alcohol, no substance, nothing. I sat down next to this woman and I'm speaking to her. And all of a sudden she turns to me and says, 'You are so engaging and I love your personality. Could I kiss you?'" And he said they made out for, 12 hours of this long across the pond flight. And it was just a really funny example of how IBOGA just lists things, it just any block that's in the way with this forensic clarity, it just takes it out of the way. But on a more serious note, I had another client who actually, I think Kimberly may know as well. And he was in the military and, he had some stoicism, just stoic where they have to, because of what they do. Obviously, they have to shove down the emotions. And he called me last week and said, "I can't thank you enough. You and IBOGA." Obviously, it's IBOGA. I'm just the guide or the facilitator. But he said, "I cried for the first time in I don't know how long, 20 years. He said, "I had family around me, and that was one of the big things that IBOGA showed me is to reconnect with my family." And I did, and it just brought tears to my eyes. So yeah, a couple more just interesting stories how IBOGA works.
Wow. So now if this was integrated into the states, which it sounds like we might be moving in that direction, how would that be? What would that process look like?
Say again, Michael, if it was integrated in today's sort of traditional medical model?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of resistance, and it seems like there's resistance to the show going out, but there is, definitely, a need for it. And if you have, from the very top, President Trump is saying, he wants to, help the mental health issues that are happening in the United States. What would that look like?
I'll jump in. I mean, and Kimberly probably has her own thoughts about this because she obviously is in the Western medical model and does a lot there too, or has been in the past. I think in part, look, it's exciting because it's necessary, but there's a part of me that just kind of goes, oof, yeah, because as things come out like this, you're going to get practitioners that are not prepared. There's going to be some cowboys out there. And so training is going to be very, very important, not just from a apprenticing standpoint, but didactically, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in these types of scenarios. And I hate the fact, I'll be honest with you, because I've been initiated in Africa now in 3 different lineages. So that part of it is very near and dear to my heart. I feel like things get lost when they're medicalized, because you're losing that relational and spiritual container. That's what IBOGA does. And so when it's reduced to a detox protocol, you just lose the wisdom. And, when I was over in Africa in September, I had mentioned like, look, I was telling mentors of mine in Africa that have been holding this plant for, oh my gosh, years and years. And they said, why would they do that? Why would they medicalize it in that way? Why would they make it clinical when it's so much more than that? They're losing the ceremonial pieces of this. That's what helps the nervous system feel safe enough to surrender. Yeah. So that part of it, I feel there's some intrepidation on my part, but look, I think that all things are possible with the right people behind it.
Yeah, very good. And, I can attest to that as well. My remote viewing and so forth it came from Apache, spiritual practice. So I just, meditation, staying, 4 times. So it is a great way to bring it in. I know that's what you do, but how you're actually a functional trainer and you the medical system and started in a direction that's probably going to be beneficial for the nurse. For how would you integrate this into maybe your
you're kind of cutting out a little bit again, Michael, but I think you're asking how we could possibly integrate it or what I think about the medicalization. I agree with Tracy about so much of what she said, that I think it does lose the wisdom and the spirituality that is really what makes IBOGA so wonderful and so helpful to people. I hate to see anything medicalized. I'm kind of on the fence because you want it to be more accessible to people. You want people to have access to these necessary treatments, but they literally ruin everything that they touch. I'm sorry, the Western medical system ruins everything it touches. So I would hate to see IBOGA go, the way of so many other things. Even like ketamine, which has been used for people to deal with depression and things like that. They often speak about how it's so clinicalized, it's so medicalized and clinicalized that it's just they go into this sterile environment, and that's not helpful. That's not healing. There's nothing conducive to healing in these kind of clinical places. So while I want to see it become more accessible, I would prefer to see it in settings like a Ravella retreat. I would love to see it legalized, but that the government's not going to legalize anything that they can't profit from. So that's the issue.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, very points. And finding the spiritual play, Dr. Tree, very spiritual, ideal. That's some of the stuff that spiritual work. You need to be in a place where ideally, because done in combat, so you can't always. You can start from a very beautiful spiritual environment, and that's what you offer. And I think really, when this was offered in the United States, you have to do it in a very beautiful environment. And what are your thoughts, Dr.
Yeah, you asking Tracy? I'm sorry.
You cut in and out a little bit, Michael. So I think I heard your question. Yeah, I think to add to what Kimberly said, it's very challenging to do these things in a clinical setting and still be able to have the spiritual experience. And look, a lot of this is not just a clinical detox. A lot of this is not just medical. It really comes from, I don't want to be too woohoo, but a lot of people are walking around with energy that's not always theirs. And so that's the thing, what attachments do people have? Or potentially, again, what childhood wounds do they have that are coming from womb, the mother's womb? And IBOGA shows you this in a spiritual way, ancestral and generational trauma that's not even really relevant. Maybe we don't realize it in today's day and age, but we've got lifetimes of that. For example, I didn't even know IBOGA showed me something very important with my own family, that my father was not my father. My mother, didn't have an affair, but she was oh gosh, you know, it was very traumatic for her. She was raped by a man who was a Jewish man who was in the Holocaust. And so, you know, I had that to deal with. That is like, you know, you talk about trauma and you talk about generational ancestral trauma, that leaves a lot of those different scars for us to deal with in this period of our lives. And so that's a long-winded answer to your question, Michael, but I feel like, yeah, there's so much more to it than people realize, truly. And to be in a clinical setting can be quite difficult. And I'll give you an example. I've had people flow to me after they've done ibogaine at different places, or, you know, they've had experiences with ibogaine. And the one thing that they say over and over again is it felt fragmented. IBOGA feels more holistic. It feels like a full sort of embodied experience. And that's because it's nature made these plants in perfection, right? It created this root with all of these alkaloids because they work so well together. It's like baking a cake with one ingredient. You know, the cake's going to taste a lot different if you make it with only flour than when you use egg, water, and oil and all of the things. So, yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, there's cutting in and out where it did this before. I've you know, different methods using different energies mitigate. So we must be very much over the target, but we're getting this information out regardless. And you know, when we do, there's other techniques we use to make sure they don't interfere. So this is fantastic. What is now I'm going to share, bring up the both of your sites, and we can do as far as like your information out. So let me see if I can find that. So let's start. You, Dr. Tracy. I'll share the screen. Tell you what I put up. It is the your main site. Tell us about.
I can't see it, but RevelaRetreats.com is my IBOGA facilitation retreats here in Costa Rica. And then I have RevelaVitality.com, which is my gut and brain functional medicine. Here we go. And I have a third project called the Garden of Divine. It's gardenofdivine.co, and that's
on the garden.
Yeah, Garden of Divine, it's called, and it's short for the God Project.
Very good. So these are in the description box under, of course, Remnant Healthcare. Tell us about that, Kimberly.
Sure. So Remnant Healthcare, we are a private membership association. We are completely outside of the mainstream medical system. I think more and more people are becoming increasingly distrustful of the mainstream system, and rightly so. I was an ICU nurse during COVID, and I understood that there was a better way. So I tried to create that with Remnant Healthcare. We did it kind of the benefit of it being twofold. It was to create opportunities for nurses to be able to come out of that Western allopathic model that was doing nothing to help and heal people. And then, of course, to be able to provide true health and wellness to the patients that we serve. So it's been really, we're about 3 years old. We are still continuing to grow, but our private membership association is $30 a month to join, and we keep our prices extremely affordable because we do want this to be accessible to people. We want people to have options. All of our practitioners are trained in functional medicine and more holistic modalities. So it's you're not just coming in, seeing a practitioner for 7 minutes and then leaving with a prescription, which is what happens in allopathic medicine, and then that causes you 10 more problems. We are really digging in and getting to the root cause of what is happening and eradicating that. And we do that through several different things. And then, we're always looking for ways that we can work with incredible practitioners like Tracy. I'd love to work with her more about how, we can get these retreats for our members and do things like this in the future. I think it's incredible what she's doing.
Yeah, and I joined family membership, so I recommend that. And
joining, I always tell people, even if you don't need our services right now, for $1 a month, you are supporting this incredible ministry. This is so needed, and we don't have any funding at all. We are completely self-funded through our memberships. That's it. I didn't accept any funding for the organization because I understood what that would mean. It would mean controlling my messaging. It would mean, having to have other people dictate the care that we provide to people. So this is the way that we're able to treat people the way they need to be treated appropriately. So
excellent. And then you have the Nurse Freedom Network Substack. That's fantastic. I'm in that as well. So you're.
Thank you. And I do want to mention.
Really.
Yeah, thank you. I had a Substack come out recently. I do want to mention this because we are seeing such great and incredible success with what we're doing at Remnant Healthcare. We had a patient that came to us with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And I'm not saying that we cure cancer, but I'm saying to you that this woman is now cancer free. And the only thing in between those two things was what we were able to do at Remnant Healthcare. So I think it's so important to look into these more holistic modalities that we have. And know that there's a better way than poison, cut, burn.
Excellent. And your United States of America 250 yet?
Yeah, I am a Wednesday host on the Nurses Report on the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network. And so we've got a big event coming up, the America Out Loud 250-10. We're celebrating the country's semi-quincentennial celebration and 10 years of America Out Loud. So a huge online event is happening July 2nd through the 4th. And we have an incredible nurse panel called Nurse Driven. And that is going to be talking to some incredible nurses that have been out here in this fight. And showing people that there is a better way. So yeah, some of my episodes there. We talk about a variety of different things, that's for sure.
Incredible. So definitely. Very good, very good. So last thoughts, Dr. Tracy?
No, I just appreciate you having me on. I think this is a very relevant conversation, especially right now with all that's out there on the IBOGA initiative, and I'm excited about that. I hope people find their way to healing, because as you said, it's not just for veterans, it's for people struggling with mental health or just who want to evolve spiritually and want more clarity in their direction moving forward.
Fantastic. That's beautiful. And thank you so much for offering those services. Wow, it's amazing. And Kimberly, your last thoughts.
I think, as you mentioned earlier, because we've been so glitchy today, we're over the target, clearly, because, the enemy is trying to attack in every which way that they can. So I would say, please, look into this, look into Ravella Retreat, look into Remnant Healthcare, and see how we can all work together to get to our highest and healthiest potential. That's my goal for myself, and that's my goal to everybody that walks through our proverbial door.
Excellent. So fantastic conversation. Again, about glitches, but like you said, Kimberly, we're over the target. That's usually happens, unfortunately. And one of the most heavily hammered shows I've ever done. So wow, this is fantastic. But Dr. Tracy, thanks for your work again. Kimberly, thanks for your work, and look forward to working with you in the future and talking more about these incredible opportunities for people to overcome lots of stuff and increase their spirituality. So I look forward to doing that myself. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Tracy. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.